Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to unpack a little bit more about what would make, well, first of all, what would make someone be a coercive controller, right? And so I'm sure many of you know Dr. Ramani, who talks about narcissistic abuse all of the time. And truly knowing that these are people who grow up with significant shame, they most likely, as children, did not experience unconditional love and positive regard. But there's another layer to this that I think is important to talk about. How is it that some people go through maybe really horrible childhood experiences, traumas, and they end up not being abusers, right? What makes them not need to control their environment so much that they're willing to control individuals and strip those individuals of their autonomy? What is it? Well, there's a Harvard study that talks about this idea that um, that we're all born a little more ego compromised or ego resilient, and ego meaning that really healthy part of our personality that we hope to foster. Ego compromised meaning not very healthy, and ego resilient meaning healthy. What's our ability to adapt to circumstances? And so some children are born into horrifying circumstances, but perhaps what research is showing us is they had an adaptability that they were born with. And so some of us maybe weren't born that way. And that doesn't make us bad or good, by the way. What it means is that we might need some extra protective parts during our development. And the course of controller did not get that. They did not get extra protective parts. They actually had protective parts taken away from them. They were shamed. They were not loved conditionally. They certainly were not given positive regard. And so because of that, they needed, as they grew, to hide that shame. How much can I hide that shame? And I'm going to continue to hide it. So they really created this fantastic mask, this charlatan that they are. And so the world perceives them as good because that's who they want the world to perceive them as. But what they do is they project all of their insecurities onto everyone else. And so when they have a partner, that partner becomes the projection object. This is, again, clinical speaking as a clinician, this idea that sometimes we project our feelings onto others, and certainly the coercive controller does that. So the coercive controller feels the need to control and to diminish other people in order to feel good. It fills their void of shame. And so they cannot be wrong. They cannot take responsibility. It is very challenging for them to change. And they do not truly love their children. Their children are objects. And so one of the things that we need to stop doing is saying, oh, well, that person, the coercive controller, whether it's a father or a mother, oh, they love you so much. That's not true. That doesn't mean we tell our children that person hates them, or that person, maybe as they age, we can say that person doesn't really know what true, authentic love is, right? Gabor Mate talks about this authenticity, the need for attachment and authenticity. And when we grow up in homes where there's a coercive controller, children never have the ability to be authentic, fully authentic, and they certainly don't have the ability to have a strong attachment to both caretakers, which is fine. Honestly, it's better to have a strong, healthy attachment to one caretaker, the protective parent. So what makes them then perhaps align with the coercive controller? Our beautiful children, what makes them? Well, maybe our children, maybe you have 3 children and one child was born a little more ego compromised. Again, not their fault. It's not a bad thing. But if they grew up a little more ego compromised, and as a protective parent, you were not even aware of what was going on in the home to compromise them even more, to compromise maybe all your children, right? But you weren't aware of what was going on. And so you weren't able to prevent it, right? Because you were also living in that cognitive dissonance. You did not believe this person was an abuser, this coercive controller was controlling you, and you did not even really see it clearly. Or if you did, you didn't know what to do about it. Again, it's never, ever a victim's fault. But what we know is that you might have, let's say, 3 children, and one child really didn't fall in line with the coercive controller. And another child, maybe it took a little longer. And maybe another child totally aligned, right? What is it? Sometimes it's our parenting as protective parents. We didn't intercede in a way that we thought would be helpful. We didn't know. Again, never the protective parent's fault. But sometimes, of course, it's that the coercive controller has figured out who the weakest link is. So who could he elevate create a golden child, the favorite child, elevate in such a way that he can totally control. Think about a puppeteer, think about a cult leader, think about all of these militants who have power over people. That's exactly what has occurred. And so it's so important that we start early on. As soon as we start to notice the signs that this might be happening, even if we haven't been able to escape, we have to work early on to support our children in a way that gives them agency. So they have a voice, so that they don't feel like they are oppressed by both parents, maybe one parent not saying too much out of fear, right? Or out of just literally not noticing what's going on. And the other parent is insidiously harming the healthy aspects of our child's ego, creating ego compromise. The more that the coercive controller can compromise our children's egos, the more control he can have. And so our role is to counteract that at all costs. So I hope that's helpful. I want to talk about intuition disintegration in my next video, and I will talk to you later. Bye.